The stars looked peaceful in the Kaldrex sector. Commander Zalthek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the empty space ahead. His 4 eyes glowed with satisfaction. Another world was about to fall under Vaxian control, and there would be no one to stop it. The Vaxian Empire had conquered 73 worlds in the last 3 centuries. They were the strongest military force in known space. Their shields could withstand any weapon. Their ships moved faster than most species could track. When the Vaxians arrived at a planet, resistance was pointless. Today's target was a small human colony called New Haven. Zalthex had read the intelligence reports about humans. They were a young species barely leaving their home system. They had no powerful weapons, no advanced shields, and no experience in galactic warfare. The colony would surrender within hours, maybe minutes. All ships report status, Zalthex commanded in his deep, rumbling voice. 11 warships responded one by one. The fleet was ready. Each destroyer carried enough firepower to level a city. Together they could crack a planet's crust if needed. Begin orbital approach, Zalthex ordered. Prepare bombardment systems. Send the standard surrender message to the colony. The fleet moved forward in perfect formation. New Haven appeared on the main screen, a small blue and green world with 3 moons. Zalthex could see the colony's simple structures on the surface. A few thousand humans lived there, mining rare minerals from the planet's crust. They had sent distress signals to Earth, but help would arrive too late. It always did. The communication officer turned to Zalthex. Commander, the humans are not responding to our message. They refuse to surrender. Zalthex made a sound that might have been a laugh. Foolish creatures. Charge the main weapons. We will destroy one of their settlements as a demonstration. Then they will understand. The weapons officer began the charging sequence. Energy readings climbed on his display. In 60 seconds, the fleet would fire and the human colony would learn what it meant to face the Vaxian Empire. 40 seconds passed. Then 30. The crew worked in disciplined silence, confident in their victory. At 15 seconds, something appeared on the sensors. Commander, the sensor officer shouted. Ship contact! Directly above us. Zalthex spun toward the tactical display. A single vessel had appeared out of nowhere, right in the middle of his fleet formation. The ship was smaller than his destroyers, sleeker with a design he had never seen before. Human markings covered its hull. How did it get there? Zalthex demanded. Why didn't we detect it? Before anyone could answer, the human ship fired. Red beams of energy lanced out from the strange vessel, moving faster than Vaxian weapons. The first beam struck the destroyer Stormbreaker. The shields flickered and died instantly. The second beam punched through the hull like it was paper. Stormbreaker exploded in a ball of fire and debris. The human ship was already moving. It accelerated at a speed that should have been impossible, spinning between 2 more Vaxian destroyers. Its weapons fired again, rapid bursts that tore through shields and armor. The destroyer Dark Conqueror lost its engine section. The destroyer Final Justice began to list, venting atmosphere from a dozen holes. Return fire! Zalthex screamed. All ships engage the target. The Vaxian fleet opened fire, but the human ship danced between their beams. It moved like nothing Zalthex had ever seen, turning and spinning with impossible precision. Every time a Vaxian weapon locked on, the human vessel was somewhere else. Inside the human ship, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, his face calm and focused. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. Linda, target the flagship's sensor array, Morrison said quietly. Locked, Linda Hayes replied from the tactical station. Her fingers moved across the controls. Firing. The ESS Defiance main weapon discharged. The beam crossed the distance in a heartbeat and struck the Eternal Dominion's dorsal section. The massive sensor dish exploded, showering the flagship with sparks and debris. Paul, how are the engines holding up? Morrison asked. Paul Grant checked his engineering displays. Running at 80% capacity, Captain. We can maintain this speed for another 10 minutes before we need to cool down. That's plenty of time, Morrison said. He watched the tactical display, counting the remaining Vaxian ships. 6 were already disabled or destroyed. 6 more remained operational, including the flagship. Linda, prepare torpedo spread. Target their weapon systems only. I want them alive to tell the story. Understood, Captain. The Defiant rolled to avoid another volley of Vaxian fire. Morrison's hands gripped the armrests of his chair, but his voice remained steady. Fire when ready. 6 torpedoes launched from the Defiance hull. They streaked toward the Vaxian destroyers, each one finding its target. Explosions rippled across the enemy ships as weapon ports and gun emplacements disintegrated. The Vaxian fleet was now completely defenseless. Commander Zolthek stared at his screens in horror. In less than 5 minutes, a single human ship had destroyed or crippled his entire fleet. His weapons were gone. His sensors were damaged. Half his crew was dead or injured. This was impossible. The report said humans were weak, primitive, harmless. Communications send an emergency message to High Command, Zolthek said, his voice shaking. Tell them humanity is not what we thought. They are dangerous. Far more dangerous than any species we have encountered. The communication officer worked frantically. Message sent, Commander. On the Defiance bridge, Morrison watched the Vaxian flagship begin its retreat. The other surviving ships followed, limping away from New Haven as fast as their damaged engines could carry them. Should we pursue, Captain? Linda asked. Morrison shook his head. No, let them go. They'll spread the word better than we ever could. Paul looked up from his station. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from New Haven. The colonists are asking if they're safe. Tell them yes, Morrison said. Tell them they're safe and they're going to stay that way. He stood from his chair and walked to the main viewport. Below, he could see the human colony, small and vulnerable but still standing. Helm, set course for the outer system. We'll wait there in case the Vaxians come back. Aye, Captain. As the Defiant moved away from the planet, Morrison thought about the 11 other ships like his, scattered across this region of space. For weeks, they had been hunting Vaxian fleets, learning their tactics, studying their weaknesses. Today's attack was just the beginning. The galaxy thought humanity was new, weak, and easy to ignore. The Vaxians had learned the truth the hard way. When you threaten human colonies, when you think humans will simply surrender and accept subjugation, you make a terrible mistake. Humans don't ask for permission to defend themselves. They don't wait for others to save them. They strike first, strike hard, and strike without warning. Morrison returned to his chair. Good work, everyone. Linda, Paul, start recording our engagement data. Command will want a full report. Already on it, sir, Linda replied. The stars looked different now, Morrison thought. The Vaxians had owned this space for centuries, moving through it like they owned every world and every life. But space was big, and humanity had been watching from the shadows, learning and preparing. Now the shadows had teeth. The ESS Defiant disappeared into the darkness between stars, leaving behind the burning wrecks of Vaxian ships and a story that would spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity had announced itself, and nothing would ever be the same. The news traveled faster than light itself. Within 3 days, every major civilization in the galaxy had heard about the Battle of New Haven. A single human ship had destroyed half a Vaxian fleet and sent the rest running. The story seemed impossible, but the Vaxians confirmed it themselves. On the Galactic Council station, representatives from 47 species gathered in the Great Chamber. The circular room was enormous, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Holographic displays showed the latest reports from the Caldrex sector. The mood was tense. Ambassador Claire Bennett stood in the center platform wearing her formal Earth diplomatic uniform. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Around her, alien representatives whispered and argued. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. The Vaxian delegation looked furious. High Counselor Vrenka, a Selthari with blue skin and 3 graceful arms, called for order. Her voice echoed through the chamber. This council demands an explanation, Ambassador Bennett. How did your species acquire such military capability? Why were we not informed? Claire looked up at the tiers of alien faces. With respect, High Counselor, humanity does not need permission to defend itself. A roar of protest erupted from multiple delegations. The Vaxian representative, Ambassador Krellick, stood up and pointed one clawed finger at Claire. Defend, you call this defense? You attacked our fleet without provocation, without warning, without even a declaration of hostilities. Your fleet was preparing to bombard a civilian colony, Claire replied calmly. Should we have waited for you to kill our people first? You violated every principle of galactic law, Krellick shouted. You cannot simply attack warships because you disagree with their mission. The Vaxian Empire has rights under the Compact of Civilizations. Claire's expression hardened. The Compact says nothing about the right to conquer peaceful worlds. For 73 planets, this council has watched the Vaxian Empire expand. You talk, you debate, you issue statements of concern. But you do nothing. High Counselor Vrenka raised one hand. Ambassador Bennett, you must understand our position. The Council cannot intervene in the internal affairs of sovereign species. If the Vaxian Empire wishes to expand and local governments choose to surrender, choose? Claire interrupted. They choose between surrender and bombardment. That's not a choice. That's terrorism. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some representatives agreed with Claire. Others accused her of arrogance and warmongering. The Mordrin delegation, a species known for their calculating logic, watched silently with their multifaceted eyes. High Counselor Vrenka called for order again. When the chamber quieted, she spoke directly to Claire. You still have not explained how humanity developed such advanced weapons. Our intelligence suggested you barely had faster-than-light travel. Claire took a breath. This was the moment she had prepared for. That intelligence was correct 50 years ago, but 50 years is a long time. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared above her head, showing human ships hidden in asteroid fields. Cloaked scouts observing alien worlds and secret shipyards in the depths of Earth's solar system. For half a century, Claire said, humanity has been watching the galaxy. We sent cloaked observation vessels to study your civilizations, your technologies, your conflicts. We learned everything we could. The chamber fell silent. Even the Vaxians stopped shouting. We saw the Vaxian Empire conquer world after world, Claire continued. We watched this council debate and accomplish nothing. We observed species being subjugated while you talked about diplomatic solutions, and we realized something important. If humanity wanted to survive in this galaxy, we could not wait for others to protect us. She changed the display. Now it showed schematics of human warships. We studied Vaxian technology. We identified weaknesses in their shields, their weapons, their tactical doctrine. Then we built ships specifically designed to exploit those weaknesses. The ESS Defiant is not unique. It is one of 20 identical vessels. Gasps and shouts filled the chamber. 20 ships? The implications were staggering. Ambassador Krelix's voice cut through the noise. 20 ships that can destroy our fleets? This is an act of war. The Vaxian Empire demands that the Council take action against Earth immediately. The Mordrin representative finally spoke, its voice like grinding crystals. The logical question is not whether Earth acted improperly, but whether their actions were effective. Ambassador Bennett, what is your species' intention? Claire looked at the Mordrin delegation. Humanity's intention is simple. We will not allow our colonies to be attacked. We will not stand by while peaceful species are conquered, and we will not ask this council's permission to do what is right. You cannot be the galaxy's police force, High Counselor Vrenka said. No single species has that authority. Then perhaps the council should start doing its job, Claire replied. Because right now we're the only ones willing to stop the Vaxians. The argument continued for hours. Some species supported humanity's right to self-defense. Others feared what would happen if Earth continued its military operations. The Vaxians demanded sanctions, even military action against Earth. In the end, the Council reached a compromise. Earth would be placed under observation. Human military activities would be monitored. If humanity attacked any more Vaxian vessels, the Council would consider economic sanctions and possible intervention. Claire accepted the terms, but she knew they were meaningless. The Council could debate forever. Meanwhile, human ships would continue their mission. Across the galaxy in the command center of the ESS Defiant, Captain Jake Morrison received the Council's decision. He sat in his ready room, reading the message on his personal screen. Linda Hayes and Paul Grant stood nearby. So they want us to stop, Linda said. What do we do, Captain? Morrison closed the screen and looked at his officers. We continue the mission, but carefully. We avoid starting an all-out war, but we don't let the Vaxians attack our people. That's a thin line to walk, Paul said. It is, Morrison agreed, but it's the only way. The Council won't protect human colonies. The Vaxians won't stop expanding, so we do what we have to do. He stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, stars stretched in every direction. Somewhere out there, Vaxian fleets were preparing their next move. Human colonies were waiting nervously for protection. The galaxy was watching to see what humanity would do next. Linda, has there been any response from the other ships? Morrison asked. Yes, sir. All 19 captains have confirmed their continuing operations. Captain Helen Price on the ESS Relentless reports that a Vaxian supply convoy is heading through the Helios sector. She's requesting permission to intercept. Morrison nodded. Grant permission. But tell her to let at least one ship escape to report what happened. We need the Vaxians to know we're everywhere. Understood, Captain. Back on the council station, Ambassador Claire Bennett returned to her quarters. The diplomatic meetings had been exhausting, but she knew they were just beginning. The galaxy was not used to species that acted independently, that refused to follow the established rules. But humanity had never been good at following rules they didn't believe in. Earth had joined the galactic community expecting cooperation and mutual protection. Instead, they found bureaucracy and cowardice. The council talked while planets burned, so humanity adapted. They watched and learned. They built their ships in secret and prepared for the day when words would not be enough. That day had arrived at New Haven, when the Vaxians came to conquer a human colony. The ESS Defiant had answered with fire and fury. Now the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity would not be conquered, would not be intimidated, and would not wait for permission to survive. Claire looked out her window at the stars. She wondered how many more battles would be fought before the galaxy learned to respect human resolve. She wondered if the Council would ever find the courage to actually protect the weak instead of just talking about it. Most of all, she wondered if humanity's captains, scattered across dozens of sectors in their powerful ships, would be able to walk the line between defense and aggression. The galaxy feared human unpredictability. Claire understood why. Humanity had come out of nowhere. They struck without warning. They fought like no species the galaxy had ever seen, and they were just getting started. High Admiral Krevthor studied the tactical display with growing frustration. He was the greatest military commander in Vaxian history, winner of 43 major battles, conqueror of 12 worlds. He had never been defeated, but the humans were making him look like a fool. The display showed 5 separate incidents, all happening in the last 6 hours. A human ship had destroyed a fuel depot in the Karsten sector. Another had crippled a shipyard near the border worlds. A supply convoy had been intercepted and disabled. A repair station was now drifting without power, and a weapons manufacturing facility was in flames. 5 targets, 5 different sectors, 5 different human ships, all striking at exactly the same time. This is not how civilized species fight wars, Krevthor growled to his tactical officer. They hide in the shadows like cowards. They strike at soft targets instead of facing our fleets in honest battle. The tactical officer nodded nervously. Admiral, our military analysis suggests the humans are using what they call guerrilla warfare. They attack where we are weak, then disappear before we can respond. I know what guerrilla warfare is, Krevthor snapped. I have studied the histories of 1,000 wars, but no species has ever tried to use such tactics on a galactic scale. The logistics alone should be impossible, but the humans were doing the impossible. They seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum damage. They hit supply lines, not battleships. They destroyed infrastructure, not armies. And they were everywhere at once. Krevthor had tried to predict their movements. He positioned fleets at likely targets. But the humans always struck somewhere else. It was like fighting smoke. Admiral, we have a report from the Helios Nebula, the communication officer said. The trap you set has been in place for 3 days. No human ships have appeared. Krevthor slammed his fist on the command table. The Helios Nebula had been his best plan. It was a region filled with electromagnetic interference that would disrupt human sensors. He had hidden 100 ships there, waiting for the ESS Defiant or one of the other human vessels to patrol through. But they never came because they knew. Somehow the humans always knew. Admiral, the Emperor is requesting an update, the communication officer said quietly. Krevthor felt his stomach tighten. The Emperor was not a patient leader. The Vaxian Empire was used to quick victories and total domination. These ongoing losses were embarrassing and costly. Trade routes required massive escorts now. Colony worlds were panicking. The economy was beginning to strain. Tell the Emperor I will have a solution within the week, Krevthor said. But he had no solution. How do you fight an enemy you cannot find? How do you protect everything when they can strike anywhere? The humans had turned the entire galaxy into a battlefield, and the Vaxian Empire was losing ground every day. Across the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the briefing room of the ESS Defiant with Linda Hayes and Paul Grant. A holographic image floated above the table, showing the face of an alien woman with delicate features and large eyes. "This is Kelsara," Morrison said. "We rescued her 6 hours ago from a Vaxian transport. She's a Selthari scientist who is being taken to a prison world." Kelsara's image bowed slightly. "I am grateful for your rescue, Captain. The Vaxians arrested me because I refused to work on their weapons projects." "What kind of weapons?" Linda asked. Kelsara's expression grew dark. "Something terrible. The Vaxians are building what they call the Extinction Array. It is a device that can cause a star to go supernova. Everything in the system would be destroyed. Planets, moons, stations, everything." The room fell silent. Paul was the first to speak. "That's insane. Why would they build something like that?" "For control," Kelsara said. "The Emperor believes that if he can threaten to destroy entire systems, no one will dare resist the Empire. He wants to make an example of a rebellious world to show the galaxy what happens when you defy Vaxian rule." Morrison leaned forward. "Do you know where they're building this weapon?" "It is being constructed at Vax Prime, the Vaxian homeworld. It is the most heavily defended location in their empire. Dozens of orbital platforms, hundreds of ships, shields that cover the entire planet." Kelsara looked at Morrison with worry in her eyes. "Captain, you cannot attack Vax Prime. It would be suicide." "Maybe," Morrison said. "But if they complete that weapon, how many worlds will they destroy? How many billions will die?" "The weapon is nearly complete," Kelsara said quietly. "According to my calculations, it will be operational within 2 weeks." Morrison stood and walked to the viewport. 2 weeks. That was not much time. The Defiant could not attack Vax Prime alone. Even with all 20 human ships, the odds would be terrible. But if they did nothing, the Vaxians would have the power to destroy Earth itself. "Paul, get me a secure channel to Earth Command," Morrison said. "We need to report this immediately." "Yes, sir." Linda stood next to Morrison. "Captain, even if Command authorizes an attack, we don't have enough ships. Vax Prime has defenses that could stop 100 vessels." "I know," Morrison said, "but maybe we don't have to do this alone." Over the next 3 days, the ESS Defiant traveled through several sectors, making contact with resistance groups on worlds conquered by the Vaxians. Morrison met with leaders from 8 different species, all of them fighting secret wars against their Vaxian oppressors. In a hidden station in the Outer Rim, Morrison addressed a gathering of resistance commanders. The room was crowded with beings of different shapes and sizes. Some looked humanoid, others were completely alien, but they all shared one thing: hatred of the Vaxian Empire. "The Vaxians are building a weapon that can destroy entire star systems," Morrison explained. "If they complete it, they will have the power to crush any resistance. Your worlds, your people, everything you are fighting for will be at risk." A Kree commander, a being covered in scales with 4 arms, spoke up. "What can we do? Our ships are small. Our weapons are outdated. We cannot fight the Vaxian military directly." "Not alone," Morrison agreed. "But together with Earth's help, we have a chance. Humanity will provide weapons, intelligence, and tactical support. We will coordinate our attacks, and we will strike at Vax Prime itself." The room erupted in shock and argument. Attack Vax Prime? It was considered impossible. The heart of the Vaxian Empire had never been successfully attacked in 3 centuries. "You're asking us to commit suicide," another commander said. "I'm asking you to fight," Morrison replied. "The Vaxians think you are beaten. They think you will never unite, never coordinate, never have the courage to strike back. Prove them wrong." He activated a holographic display showing the extinction array. "This weapon will be complete in less than 2 weeks. When it is finished, the Emperor will use it to burn a world as a demonstration. Maybe it will be one of your worlds. Maybe it will be Earth. But it will happen unless we stop it." Morrison looked at each commander in turn. "Earth is offering you a choice. Join us in this attack and we will share our technology with you. We will help you liberate your worlds. We will stand together against the Vaxians, or refuse and face the future alone." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then the Kree commander stepped forward. "My people will join you. We have waited 3 generations for someone brave enough to lead us." One by one, the other commanders agreed. They would gather their ships, mobilize their fighters, and prepare for the impossible. They would attack Vax Prime. Back on the Defiance Bridge, Morrison received a response from Earth Command. The message was short and clear: do what you must. Earth stands with you. He also received messages from the other 19 human ship captains. Every single one of them volunteered to join the attack. Captain Helen Price on the ESS Relentless sent a simple message. About time we hit them where it hurts. Morrison looked at Linda and Paul. Start preparing the fleet. We launch in 10 days. Coordinate with the resistance groups. I want every ship armed with the best weapons we can provide. Understood, Captain, Linda said. What about the Galactic Council? They ordered us to avoid major military action. Morrison smiled grimly. The Council can file a complaint after we save the galaxy. High Admiral Krevthor finally received intelligence about human movements. Multiple sources reported that human ships were gathering in the Outer Rim, meeting with resistance groups, distributing weapons. Something big was being planned, but Krevthor could not determine the target. There were too many possibilities. He spread his fleets thin, trying to protect everything at once. He never imagined the humans would be crazy enough to attack Vax Prime itself. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other across the tiers of seats. Holographic displays showed disturbing images. Human warships distributing weapons to resistance groups, secret meetings in the Outer Rim, and reports of a massive fleet gathering. Ambassador Claire Bennett stood in the center platform again, but this time she was not alone. Ambassador Krellix, the Vaxian representative, stood beside her, his claws extended in anger. The humans are violating every agreement, Krellix shouted to the council. They are arming rebels throughout our territory. They are preparing an act of war. The council must act now to stop them. High Counselor Vrenka looked tired. The past weeks had been exhausting, with emergency sessions nearly every day. Ambassador Bennett, is it true that Earth is coordinating with resistance movements in Vaxian space? Claire stood straight and spoke clearly. Yes, Earth is providing support to species fighting for their freedom. Freedom? Krellix roared. They are terrorists and criminals. They have no right to rebel against legitimate Vaxian authority. Legitimate? Claire turned to face the Vaxian. You conquered their worlds by force. You imprisoned their leaders. You enslaved their populations. Don't talk to me about legitimacy. The council erupted in arguments again. Some species supported Earth's actions. Others feared the consequences of such widespread rebellion. The Mordran delegation watched with their calculating eyes, saying nothing. High Counselor Vrenka called for order. Ambassador Bennett, the council is considering sanctions against Earth, economic restrictions, travel bans, possibly military intervention. You must understand that your actions are destabilizing the entire galaxy. The galaxy is already unstable, Claire replied. The Vaxian Empire has been destabilizing it for 3 centuries, while this council watched and did nothing. Earth is simply correcting your failure. You have no authority to correct anything, another representative shouted. Claire's voice grew cold. We have the authority of conscience. We have the authority of capability. And we have the authority of species who asked us for help because you refused to give it. She activated her holographic display. Images appeared showing the extinction array under construction at Vax Prime. The weapon looked like a massive ring with energy coils running through its structure. Technical data scrolled beside the image. While you debate, Claire said, the Vaxians are building this. It is called the extinction array. It can destroy an entire star system. Every planet, every moon, every living thing, gone. The council chamber fell silent. Representatives stared at the images with growing horror. This is Vaxian propaganda, Krellix said, but his voice lacked conviction. This is Selthari research data, Claire corrected, provided by one of your own scientists who the Vaxians imprisoned for refusing to work on this monstrosity. The weapon will be complete within days. The Emperor plans to use it as a demonstration. How many billions will die to prove Vaxian power? High Counselor Vrenka looked at the Vaxian delegation. Ambassador Krellix, is this true? Is your empire building such a weapon? Krellix was silent for a moment. Then he spoke carefully. The Vaxian Empire develops many defensive technologies. What we build is our business and defensive? Claire laughed bitterly. A weapon that can exterminate entire civilizations is defensive? The council erupted into chaos again. Some representatives demanded that the Vaxians stop construction immediately. Others argued that sovereign species could develop any weapons they wanted. The Mordran representative finally stood. The logical conclusion is clear, the Mordran said in its crystal voice. If the Vaxian Empire possesses such a weapon, no species is safe. Therefore, the weapon must be destroyed. The question is, who will do it? All eyes turned to the Mordran. The species was known for brutal honesty and cold logic. The Council lacks the military capability, the Mordrin continued. The Vaxians have the strongest fleet in known space. Only one species has demonstrated the ability to defeat Vaxian forces, humanity. Therefore, humanity must destroy the weapon. You cannot authorize an attack on Vax Prime, Krellix protested. It would be an act of war against a council member. The alternative is allowing a weapon of extinction to exist, the Mordrin replied. Logic suggests the choice is obvious. High Counselor Vrenka looked around the chamber. The council was divided as always. Some species wanted action, others wanted more debate. Nothing would be decided quickly enough to matter. This council will take the matter under advisement, Vrenka said finally. We will reconvene in 3 days to vote on appropriate action. Claire smiled grimly. 3 days. By then it would be over. Earth was not waiting for permission. I withdraw from this session, Claire said formally. Earth no longer recognizes this council's authority in matters of human security. She turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the council chamber exploded in protests and arguments. But Claire did not look back. The time for talking was over. In space near Vax Prime, High Admiral Krevthor commanded the defense fleet from his flagship. Around him, hundreds of Vaxian warships patrolled in perfect formations. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons. The planet below was covered by a shield that could withstand anything. Status of the extinction array? Krevthor asked. Construction is 97% complete, Admiral, a technician reported. The weapon will be operational in 48 hours. The Emperor has already selected the target for the demonstration. Krevthor nodded. Once the weapon was complete, the rebellion problem would end. The humans would stop their attacks. The resistance groups would surrender. Everyone would understand that defying the Vaxian Empire meant death. Admiral, we are receiving intelligence reports, the communication officer said. Multiple sources indicate that human ships are gathering in the Outer Rim. They appear to be coordinating with resistance forces. Let them gather, Krevthor said confidently. They cannot threaten Vax Prime. Our defenses are absolute. If the humans are foolish enough to attack here, we will destroy them and end this nuisance once and for all. Aboard the ESS Defiant, Captain Jake Morrison gathered his senior staff for a final briefing. The ship's conference room was crowded with officers. Linda Hayes and Paul Grant sat closest to Morrison. Around them were department heads and tactical specialists. The attack begins in 6 hours, Morrison said. 20 human ships and 143 allied vessels from 8 different species. We will be facing approximately 300 Vaxian warships plus orbital defenses. He activated the tactical display. A 3-dimensional model of Vax Prime appeared, showing the planet, its defense platforms, and the position of the extinction array in high orbit. Our objective is simple. Destroy the extinction array before it becomes operational. Everything else is secondary. What about casualties? One officer asked quietly. Morrison met the officer's eyes. Earth Command has authorized this mission with full knowledge of the risks. Every captain volunteered. Every crew member volunteered. We all understand that some of us may not make it back. The room was silent. Everyone knew the odds. Attacking the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy was suicide. But it was necessary. The Vaxians think we are crazy, Morrison continued. They think we will never attack Vax Prime because the defenses are too strong. That is exactly why we are going to succeed. They are not prepared for someone desperate enough to try. Linda spoke up. Captain, even if we destroy the weapon, the Vaxians will rebuild it eventually. Maybe, Morrison agreed. But today we buy time. We show the galaxy that the Vaxians are not invincible. We prove that when you threaten innocent lives, someone will stand up and fight back. He looked around the room at his crew. These people had been with him through every battle. They trusted him. They followed him. And now he was leading them into the most dangerous mission of their lives. Return to your stations, Morrison said. Prepare for combat. And remember, we are not just fighting for Earth. We are fighting for every species that the Vaxians have conquered, every world they have burned, every life they have destroyed. Today we make them pay. The officers stood and saluted. Then they left to prepare their departments. Soon only Morrison, Linda, and Paul remained. Honest assessment, Morrison said quietly. What are our chances? Paul considered carefully. If everything goes perfectly, maybe 40%. If things go wrong, 10%. And our chances of surviving personally? Morrison asked. Linda and Paul exchanged glances. Neither answered. Morrison nodded. That's what I thought. Well, if we are going to die, let's make it count. Let's make sure the Vaxians never forget the day humanity came to Vax Prime. He stood and walked toward the bridge. Behind him, his two closest officers followed. They had been through so much together. Now they would face the end together, whatever that end might be. The final countdown had begun. The space around Vax Prime looked peaceful. Stars glittered in the darkness. The massive planet rotated slowly below, its cities glowing like jewels. Orbital platforms drifted in their assigned positions. Hundreds of Vaxian warships patrolled in perfect formations. Everything was calm. Then, out of nowhere, the human fleet arrived. 20 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel simultaneously, appearing in different positions around the planet. Before the Vaxian defenders could react, 143 ships from 8 different species emerged from the darkness. The rebel fleet had arrived. High Admiral Krevthor stared at his tactical display in shock. All ships, battle stations, engage the attackers immediately. But the humans were already firing. The ESS Defiant led the assault, its weapons cutting through the nearest orbital platform like fire through paper. The ESS Relentless, commanded by Captain Helen Price, targeted the shield generators protecting the planet. Other human ships spread out, each attacking a specific weak point in the defenses. The rebel ships followed the human lead, swarming over Vaxian destroyers with desperate courage. They were outmatched in firepower, but they had numbers and determination. Ships exploded on both sides, space filled with debris and energy beams. On the Defiance bridge, Captain Jake Morrison watched the battle unfold. Linda, status of the extinction array? Still operational, Captain. The Vaxians have moved extra ships to protect it. We will need to break through their defense line. Paul, divert all auxiliary power to weapons and engines. We are going straight through. Yes, sir. But Captain, our shields cannot take that kind of punishment for long. Morrison gripped the arms of his command chair. They don't need to last long, just long enough to reach the target. The Defiant accelerated, diving toward the formation of Vaxian ships protecting the extinction array. Enemy fire hammered against its shields. The ship shook violently. Warning alarms blared across the bridge. Shields down to 60%, Paul reported. Keep going, Morrison ordered. Behind them, 3 other human ships followed the Defiance path. Together they punched through the Vaxian defensive line, leaving burning wrecks in their wake. But the cost was terrible. One human ship, the ESS Guardian, took a direct hit to its engine core and exploded. 30 crew members died instantly. Morrison felt each death like a weight on his chest, but he could not stop. The mission was too important. High Admiral Krevthor watched in fury as the human ships broke through his defenses. Focus all fire on the lead vessel. I want it destroyed. 20 Vaxian destroyers turned toward the Defiant. Their combined firepower was devastating. The Defiant's shields flickered and failed. Hull plating cracked. Systems began to fail. Shields offline, Paul shouted. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. We are taking heavy damage. Can we reach the array? Morrison demanded. Linda checked her displays. Yes, but we will not survive the return trip. Our engines are critically damaged. Morrison made his decision. All hands, this is the captain. Evacuate all non-essential personnel to the Allied ships. That is an order. Captain. Linda looked at him in shock. Do it now. We need someone to survive to tell Earth what happened here. Get the crew off this ship. Paul stood from his station. Captain, I am not leaving my post. Neither am I, Linda added. Morrison looked at his 2 friends, his most trusted officers. He wanted to order them to leave, to save themselves. But he saw the determination in their eyes. They had made their choice. Very well, he said quietly. Then let's finish this together. The evacuation proceeded quickly. Crew members rushed to escape pods and small shuttles. Allied ships moved close to retrieve them despite the danger. Within minutes, most of the Defiance crew had evacuated. Only Morrison, Linda, Paul and a handful of volunteers remained. The Defiant limped forward, trailing fire and debris. Its weapons were still operational. Its course was set, and its target was directly ahead. The extinction array. High Admiral Krevthor realized what the humans were planning. They are going to ram the array. All ships, intercept them. But it was too late. The Defiant accelerated on its final run, dodging between Vaxian destroyers. Morrison sat in his chair, watching the array grow larger on the screen. It was beautiful in a terrible way, a ring of technology capable of destroying stars. Linda, arm all torpedoes. Paul, overload the reactor core. When we hit, I want the biggest explosion possible. Torpedoes armed, Linda reported. Her voice was calm, almost peaceful. Reactor overload in progress, Paul said. Detonation in 60 seconds. The Defiant smashed through the last line of defenders. The array was directly ahead now, close enough to see its individual components. Morrison could see Vaxian technicians, evacuating the structure, tiny figures fleeing in panic. Firing torpedoes, Linda said. Every remaining weapon on the Defiant fired simultaneously. Torpedoes streaked toward the array, impacting along its ring structure. Explosions rippled across the massive weapon. Critical systems failed. Energy coils shattered. Then the Defiant struck the array directly. The reactor core detonated a split second after impact. The explosion was visible across 3 sectors of space. The extinction array disintegrated, torn apart by forces it had been designed to create. The blast wave expanded outward, consuming the Defiant completely and damaging dozens of nearby Vaxian ships. High Admiral Krevthor watched in horror as the flagship Eternal Dominion, caught too close to the explosion, began to break apart. Emergency alarm screamed. His bridge crew shouted in panic. The last thing Krevthor saw was the bulkhead collapsing toward him. The battle continued for 2 more hours. Without the array, and without their flagship, the Vaxian fleet began to lose cohesion. Ships retreated in disorder. The orbital defenses fell one by one. The rebel fleet pressed their advantage, destroying Vaxian military installations across the planet's orbit. Captain Helen Price, now the senior human officer, finally ordered a general retreat. The mission was complete. The weapon was destroyed. It was time to withdraw before Vaxian reinforcements arrived. The combined fleet, battered and burning, pulled back and jumped to faster-than-light speeds. Behind them, Vax Prime burned. The heart of the Vaxian Empire had been wounded, perhaps fatally. 1 week later, Ambassador Claire Bennett returned to the Galactic Council chamber. The mood was very different from her last visit. Representatives spoke in quiet, respectful tones. Even the Vaxian delegation was subdued. High Counselor Vrenka addressed the chamber. The Council has received reports about the Battle of Vax Prime. We have confirmed that the extinction array has been destroyed. We have also confirmed that humanity lost 3 ships in the attack, including the ESS Defiant and its captain. Claire stood tall despite her grief. Jake Morrison had been a friend. His death hurt, but his sacrifice had saved billions. The Council must now decide how to respond to these events. Vrenka continued. Ambassador Bennett, what is Earth's position? Claire activated her holographic display. Images appeared showing the battle, the destroyed array, and the faces of the crew members who died. Humanity's position is simple, Claire said. We did what had to be done. We destroyed a weapon that threatened every species in the galaxy. We lost brave people doing it, and we would do it again if necessary. She looked around the chamber. But we did not do this alone. 8 species fought beside us. Hundreds of their ships, thousands of their crew members. They fought because they believed in freedom. They fought because someone finally gave them hope. The rebel species representatives stood in their seats. The Kree commander raised his forearms in salute. Others followed. The galaxy has changed, Claire continued. Species that were conquered are now free. The Vaxian Empire is weakened, and everyone has learned something important. When you threaten innocent lives, when you build weapons of extinction, someone will stop you. Maybe not the Council, but someone. She paused. Earth proposes a new treaty. We will share our military technology and tactical training with any species that commits to defending the weak, not conquering, not expanding, defending. In return, those species will join a mutual defense alliance. Together, we will ensure that what the Vassians did can never happen again. The chamber was silent. Then the Mordrin representative stood. The Mordrin Collective accepts this proposal. Logic suggests cooperation is superior to subjugation. One by one, other species agreed. Some reluctantly, some enthusiastically. The Vaxian delegation sat in shocked silence, their empire crumbling around them. High Counselor Vrenka looked at Claire with something like respect. The Council will consider this proposal, but I suspect we have little choice. The galaxy has already changed. We can either change with it, or become irrelevant. Claire nodded. That is all Earth asks, a chance to build something better. 6 months passed. A memorial station was constructed at the exact location where the Defiant made its final attack. Representatives from 40 species attended the dedication ceremony. The names of Jake Morrison, Linda Hayes, Paul Grant, and every crew member who died at Vax Prime were inscribed on a wall of crystal that caught the light of nearby stars. Captain Helen Price stood at the memorial with other human officers. She wore her formal uniform with a black armband. Around her, families of the fallen wept quietly. They changed everything, Helen said softly.